Hi, this is Stephanie Hines, and I'm here to talk to you about Patton Step 2, which is assess and enhance evaluator readiness and competence to undertake a utilization-focused evaluation. So, utilization-focused evaluation is about grounding findings in the relationship between the evaluator and primary intended users to ensure that the questions asked are relevant, the methods used are appropriate, the findings are understandable, and the entire evaluation process is credible. And utilization-focused evaluation is not for everyone, and not everyone is good at it. And this chapter really deals with the end of that sentence. Not everyone is good at it. So it's about being prepared to do an evaluation. So both the program and the evaluator have to have readiness, capacity, and commitment. So Patton talks about Alkin's 4 categories. Alkin actually identified 50 factors of evaluation use. So Patton really focuses a lot on, is the evaluation actually going to be used by the users? And so those 50 factors are broken down into the 4 categories. So you have evaluator characteristics, which are, commitment to making the use a priority, the willingness to involve the users, political sensitivity, and credibility. The user characteristics are their level of interest in the evaluation, their willingness to commit time and energy, and position of influence also. And the contextual characteristics include things like the size of organization, the political climate, and the existence of competing information. The evaluation characteristics include the nature and timing of the evaluation report, the relevance of the information that comes out of the evaluation, the rigor of the methods, and the quality of the data. So Patton recommends going in and observing first before intervening and figuring out what are the natural tendencies in the organization, testing things out on a small scale to see how the organization will react, and also having the menu of choices in design, methods, and reporting. So staying flexible so that you're really meeting the needs of the organization. A lot of times people see evaluators as imperialistic, like they're coming in like I'm better than you and I'm here to judge you, but that's not really going to promote collaboration. So you have to figure out like how does the organization, the people in it, see evaluation. And there's a difference between utilization-focused evaluation and regular evaluation. So utilization, it's more emphasis on interacting with the users and paying more attention to interpersonal and group facilitation skills, which are your people skills. So evaluators need credibility. Patton talked a lot about this, making sure that you really have the qualifications before doing an evaluation, and selecting and applying the methods and measures, and analyzing and presenting the findings. All of that comes from the evaluator. So the evaluator is really the person that's kind of driving the whole evaluation. So that person really needs to establish and maintain credibility during the whole process. So Patton recommends, there's a lot of different professional associations that actually have standards for evaluators. He talked about the Canadian Evaluation Society, the Aotearoa, not sure if I pronounced that right, New Zealand Evaluation Association, and then there's an American Evaluation Association, and they all have different rules and guidelines. So evaluators need the education, abilities, skills, and experience to do the job. They also have to demonstrate the cultural competence, having that sensitivity towards different cultures and working with different people of all different kinds of people. And if an evaluator is not ready to do an evaluation, they should decline doing it, or at least let the people know like what the limitations are. Like maybe I just graduated from my program and this is my first time, or maybe I have never done this type of evaluation before, and maybe another evaluator would be better. Just being honest about your own preparation. And, of course, having lifelong learning and continuing to learn about evaluation is important. So Gene King talked about 6 program evaluator competencies. So a lot of people have put a lot of thought into these different, what makes a good evaluator. So knowing and observing professional norms and values were important to Jean King. Having that systematic inquiry. So having that expertise in the technical aspects of evaluation, it's still important, right? Design, measurement, data analysis, interpretation, and sharing results. And then also having that situational analysis, so paying attention to what's happening around you while you're evaluating, and then responding to that as well. Being able to address conflicts, issues of evaluation use, and determine like how easy is it to evaluate this program. Also, you have to have project management skills. You have to negotiate contracts, budgets, resources, and deadlines. Also, an evaluator needs to have a reflective practice and have that interpersonal competence. Again, those people skills, the written and oral communication, negotiation, and the cross-cultural skills are important. So, usually a company or program will interview an evaluator to figure out if they're a right fit. If you take a look at patent page 39, you'll see a list of interview questions that you can ask evaluators if you're going to hire them. And evaluators can study those questions so that they can prepare what kind of answers they'll give when they're being interviewed. So you want to make sure that the evaluator has methodological competence and rigor, which are dealt with in other chapters of patent. But the good evaluators, they're going to do what works in the situation. So you want someone who's flexible, and don't just be like, I'm an evaluator, I want rigor and only rigor and nothing else, and I'm completely inflexible. That would be a no-no. So you need to have both the situation analysis and the technical skill. So Patton said that narcissists make bad evaluators because it's all about them, and also those who can't judge their own competence. So someone who thinks, they're awesome, they're doing perfect, but they're not really, is not going to make a good evaluator, so because they're not doing that self-reflection. So people skills, very important for an evaluator to have. So building and maintaining relationships is part of the work, so keeping that in mind always is important. And then if you don't have the people skills, they'll probably just ignore your evaluation. And then it has to be meaningful, that the primary intended users are involved in the evaluation process. So I thought this little cartoon really wrapped it up. So it says to do enhanced skills in communication, conflict resolution, negotiation, listening, group facilitation, cultural competence. These are all skills everybody needs, right? And then at the bottom it says, just to be on the safe side, let's look into evaluation models that don't involve working with people. So this is supposed to be a joke, right? It's a little sarcastic. Okay, so negotiation is one of the people skills that's really important because there probably will be some disagreements. So you have to give voice to different views, identify those conflicting priorities, find trade-offs, and reaching a common ground. So you need skills in group facilitation, negotiation, conflict resolution, problem solving, and decision making. So have to be able to get everyone to come to the table ready to do this work together. Here's another funny one. The lawyer says, please, Mr. Wolf, now we're just splitting hairs. So, negotiation. All right, so you have to have give and take and know the roles. So an evaluator can take on many roles. And they work on a team. Patton talked a lot about working on a team as being a better model than one single evaluator by themselves, because then you get the strengths of all the different people on the team. So the evaluator can't be passive and let the users completely drive the process, because then it wouldn't be an accurate picture of the organization. But the evaluator also can't be pushy. You have to have that give and take again. So the focus of the negotiations and trade-offs is driven by the commitment to producing the most useful possible evaluation within the resource and time constraints of the situation. So Patton's always going back to, is it useful? Is it going to be used? It's this whole thing about utilization. All right, so teamwork. It's best to work together in a team. Some people are better at some aspects of evaluation than others. And and the evaluations get used more when it's in a team. And then you have more cultural competence spread across more than one person. So bridging between the evaluators and the stakeholders. The evaluators tend to think about what's clear, specific, concrete, and observable. And it doesn't come easily to people who, they thrive on and even depend on vagueness, generalities, and untested beliefs as the basis for action. So the type of people who are driven to do nonprofit type of work are not necessarily the type of people who are driven to do evaluations. And so there can be some, differences there. So some users, they might need help to see evaluation as valuable. And so in the step 1, he talks a lot about how to do that and gives really good exercises for getting the people ready for the evaluation. And you always have to show that cultural sensitivity and competence to counterbalance the logical side. So another people skill is cultural competence. It's a new, new, very important part of evaluation. So you have to be an interpreter, translator, mediator, storyteller. Culture is personal, and everyone brings it with them. You have the culture of the organization as well as the culture of each individual person involved in the organization. So he warns not to intimidate or manipulate the users. Don't act presumptuous or arrogant. Figuring out, the politics of the organization and the community engagement as your starting points. So here's another little cartoon. Of course, this is not all the different types of people in an organization, but just thought it was kind of funny. So you need a basic foundation of understanding and commitment on the part of the users. And listening to them is important. It's okay to change your evaluation questions and designs as you learn new info. So it's being flexible and responsive. So if others think you need to improve your people skills, you do. So thought that was funny too. So being flexible is another people skill. Patton calls it the active, reactive, interactive, adaptive. So being all those things rolled up into one. This approach to facilitation requires versatility, flexibility, creativity, political astuteness, and responsiveness. So don't do the same thing every time. When you evaluate one organization, it's not going to be the same as when you go evaluate a different one. Reacting to the environment reduces uncertainty and increases the level of flexibility. Using reflection and feedback can improve your practice. So knowing your own strengths and limitations lets you know what you need to keep working on, what skills you need to facilitate these kinds of evaluations. So being reflexive means like questioning, self-understanding, self-awareness, reflection, thinking about what I know and how I know it. So an example from education that was in the book was about how students need feedback and they need to know what to do next to be able to improve. So you really need that feedback, and working in a team again would help you have that opportunity, and also getting feedback from the users. So the Dunning-Kruger effect Patton talked about is that people with low competence actually rate themselves as above average, and highly skilled people tend to underrate their abilities. So self-assessments can be prone to error. So really getting feedback from other people is really important. And it helps you compare your own reflection with other people's reflection of your work. So it's important. With practice and feedback, people can get better at assessing their competence. So there's research that shows that if you practice and get feedback and are always comparing what you think about yourself with what other people think, you'll get better at judging your own work. So you need to improve reflecting and assessing your own competence. There's a checklist on page 407 to 408, which I've copied here, but I'm running out of time. So please take a look. Pretty much the whole chapter or step is on these pages, 407 to 408. So this is kind of the whole summary. And there's another part of it. Another part.